Hi, everybody. I'm here with James Gardner, and we are going to be talking about if AI handles the process, does human judgment become more valuable? James, first of all, however, give us a quick introduction to
Mhm.
you for anybody that's new to this channel. You've been on a lot of times, so people who are repeat visitors will probably know you, but if not, give us your background.
Yes, no problem. I've been involved in talent and talent acquisition for probably more years than I care to remember now. I initially started many moons ago in agency recruitment at Harvey Nash and progressed into exec search and then came in-house. And really what I do is I aid organizations, whether they're enterprise, scaling tech organizations, to drive transformation into their TA capability. And more often than not are focusing on talent and talent acquisition being transformed into a commercial lever as opposed to a simple process, and actually elevating that talent piece to higher up the scale in the organization. We all say that talent is the most important part of an organization's success. So we all should adhere to that mantra.
I actually hadn't recognized that you started in Talent Nash at Harvey Nash. That's quite a posh entry into the industry, right? Most of us started somewhere a little bit more rough and ready than that.
Well, I went to an interview for a role and they said, no, you're no good for this, but have you ever thought about being a recruitment consultant? And I went, okay. And yeah, in the heady days of the late 90s, where let's just say that it was a little bit like the Wild West, but yeah, it was a fun introduction. But I think I got to the point where I wanted to use, this sounds a little bit facetious, but use my brain a little bit more, and hence went internal and looked at talent strategy, and how you effectively utilize talent to deliver the commercial outcomes that the organization is looking to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so our topic today is if AI
Yeah.
handles the process, does human judgment become more valuable? And it's an interesting one. I could argue probably both sides of this. What do you think?
Well, I think I'm firmly in one camp, to be honest. I think one of the biggest kind of possible misconceptions that are out in the market at the moment is that AI is going to reduce the importance of humans in the hiring process. But there's fundamental ideals that the opposite is actually true. Obviously, AI is going to reduce operational work. It takes away kind of that friction in the process. But actually, what it then does is surely promote human judgment to become more necessary, more important. For years, recruiters have been focused on sourcing, screening, scheduling, administration, reporting. If all of this can now be done to a certain extent by AI, what you're actually getting suddenly in TA teams is hopefully a bit of time. And what's valuable is what you do with that time. And I think when we consider why we hire individuals into our talent teams, we've never gone, okay, let's hire this guy because he's great at scheduling interviews. He's superb at scheduling interviews. Nobody hires a hiring manager because they complete scorecards quickly. The value's got to be elsewhere. And I think AI enables a surfacing of real value, which in my mind is judgment, pattern recognition, balancing trade-offs, identifying potential in individuals, because process doesn't do that. So if your process, which traditionally in recruitment was the majority of work that you did, and we all celebrated individuals who drove very quickly, had attention to detail, and had lots of calls, and lots of interviews, etc., etc. But 95% of that time was process. If we remove that process, actually what is provided is space for better assessment. And let's be honest, assessment is the absolute fulcrum of who we are.
So it's reminding me of when, yeah, as you know, I work in the technology space,
Mm.
and there's a lot of discussion right now about, well, like AI can just build technology products. And so like, why do we need technology companies to go and do that? And one of the arguments is it's to do with taste. It's to do with, well, the people building technology companies, they've got good taste around like exactly how the product should work and what it should look like and what the user interface should be and what the experience should be and those types of things come down to taste. Taste is a little bit subjective. Explain to me how judgment is not subjective and it's something that we can actually quantify.
Well, again, judgment has a level of subjectiveness to it, but again, with that use of AI, what we can do is we can surface pattern, we can surface recognition, we can utilize it for a level of analysis of metrics and data. What it can't do as yet is interpret. So again, that human judgment is highly important in that factor. And I think organizations that understand this, they utilize AI to, as I've said before, reduce friction in process. But the organizations that are really going to win are the ones that marry technology, which, let's be honest, is going to be universal. Technology is not going to be the differentiator anymore. It's actually going to be judgment. And when you leave space for judgment, you then are a situation where assessment becomes more effective. You're at a point where organizations are focusing not on spending money on speeding up process and process design to get people through quicker. What they're actually doing is focusing on what I see as the fundamental point, the decision-making process of who is the right individual who's going to create impact in this organization.
So I wonder if I understand your point entirely. I don't, yeah, I mean, I agree. I understand it.
There's two different sides of it, I think.
Well, yes. I mean, so you could take the approach which is, look, we need humans doing the human parts where judgment and taste and things like that will really help our organization to thrive. And that, or you could take the entirely opposite view, which is forget about that. If we automate absolutely everything, then we're going to be more efficient. And we'll get some things wrong because there's not enough judgment involved, but it doesn't matter. That can like things can fall off the plane as it's flying and we'll still keep flying faster. Right. So this is not just this just does not just relate to things like talent acquisition. Does the whole company ethos on this come down to the CEO's like attitude?
Yes, in some respects, because one of the big concerns I've got at the moment with the current market is that because it is a difficult market out there and we've got the introduction of AI, that I think the candidate experience is becoming not less important, but less focused on. I can definitely say that's true in terms of my job search. And my worry is that organizations will go, okay, for the cost efficiency that we're gaining, we're just going to go, that will do. But the market will change and there is still huge competition for top level talent. So it's about, again, it goes back to trade-off. And going back to your earlier point, yes, AI speed things up and efficiency and delivers efficiency, but if your processes, your framework, your alignment, your structure is not in the right place, it's just going to speed up bad decision making. Simple as that. It just makes your bad decision making even more efficient. And if you're a scaling organization and what you're looking to do with scale is to see your obviously the organization grow, but your cost of acquisition remain relatively constant. If you're speeding up bad decision making, all you're going to do is see the cost of acquisition trend in line with the growth of the organization.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm thinking there's other business functions that this applies to. So it applies to lots of different areas of human resources. And you see these headlines, which is I got rid of HR and now we're moving faster, stuff like that. But it also can apply to things like marketing. So, marketing is
marketing.
heavily, judgment based and taste based.
Mhm.
And then sales also is. So you can see companies that are trying to really automate the delivery of the end-to-end sales process. And they could save millions and millions by getting rid of their sales teams, but they could also miss out on um, deals worth millions because they've
Mhm.
done that because a bot can't answer can't handle the objection in the same way. So this is why I'm wondering if this is if what we're going to see is companies that either go one way or like actually literally go the other way as a point of differentiation in how they succeed.
Yes, I think we will see that at this kind of, if you want to call it, look at a life cycle of the introduction of AI. I think we will probably see organizations going too far, realizing they've gone too far, and retracting back. Because if we take the example of sales, let's go back to when sales was a Rolodex. It was all about cold calling. Then we had our kind of, let's call it CRM, programmatic approach. And that programmatic approach, what it did was speed up process. It sped up the ideal of being able to go, okay, I can have an automated approach to understand in this vast audience that I'm approaching who may have interest. So what I'm actually doing is making a more efficient approach because they've, through their actions of opening assets, etc., have informed me that they could have a possible interest. So what you're doing is driving efficiency in your process. And if we take that back to talent acquisition, what we're doing is driving efficiency in a process that used to be incredibly manually kind of labor intensive. So all it's actually doing is like the customer acquisition funnel, it's speeding up and making more efficient the volume of groundwork you've got to do. That's what AI is doing. And if we get to a point where AI is making the decision for us, that's then we've gone too far because AI can't interpret signal. And if we take it back to talent acquisition at the moment, AI is actually enabling the candidate market to create highly professional, highly specific CVs that are perfectly aligned to a role. So if you're using AI to purely do that assessment piece, it's very difficult for AI to then differentiate between what's a good signal, what's a bad signal, what's a real signal. So that then goes back to my earlier point that assessment becomes the most important factor. And if we think about that from a customer acquisition perspective, then you still need your sales team to be able to understand and interpret the level of interest when, I mean, we go back to our old SDR teams. When there was a level of interest shown, they would initially kind of try and build that interest and push it through to a sales director or account manager. And it's exactly the same ideal for talent acquisition and talent. Yes, we're going to see changes. We know that. But again, the companies that win are the companies that understand what I'm doing is making my process efficient and I'm removing manual intensive labor, which used to be so time consuming. And what I'm now doing is providing the space to focus on what the positive impact processes are, which still need to be human. Because, I mean, if we think about hiring managers, we've got a situation at the moment where lots and lots of organizations are investing heavily in AI in their talent acquisition process. But are they investing in hiring manager training for assessment? Probably not. And that's a fundamental issue because, again, I go back to the most important factor is not can I surface 10 candidates who are perfect for this role? It's okay, of these 10 candidates, who is going to make the best impact to the organization, considering where we are in our life cycle, what our solution we need, what the issue we have and we need a solution for is. AI can't do that. It's still human
Yeah,
judgment that has to be the premise of that decision making.
yeah, I agree. Okay, last question. Help me understand the link or lack of link between human judgment and unconscious bias or even conscious bias?
Yes, again, I mean, again, this is again a fundamental issue, because the reality is, and let's look at it from 2 points of view, AI will still have bias fundamentally because it's built by humans, simple as that. And outside of AI, we will still have unconscious bias, because the reality is that humans will gravitate towards individuals who they perceive to be successful and innovative, etc., etc. I think the piece that differentiates that, and we've talked a lot about this around talent acquisition at the moment, is moving from what I would call an older competency-based approach to assessment to a skills-based process of assessment, which is a difficult step to make. I was at an event last Thursday, and a major major international insurance organization had completely done away with CVs, and I was so impressed with that. For a insurance business that is usually relatively prehistoric in how they approach, the talent acquisition director had come in there and managed to literally go to his hiring fraternity. You won't see CVs. You're never going to see a CV from us. You're going to see an assessment, and you're going to see a potential skills capability. And as he said, we moved away in some of the kind of lower level roles from hiring individuals who'd come out of insurance, etc., to individuals who had a previous sporting career or had experience of working in bars and things like that, because it was purely based on a skills structure, not, yes, I've worked for, I know, Lloyd's of London. And that step, I think, is an incredible step to make. So it then goes back to our view, and to your point of conscious or unconscious bias. Humans naturally will go, okay, they need to have X, Y, and Z background to be able to assimilate with the environment that we're in. However, even if they've got that background, they might not have the right skill set to impact on the problem or the solution that you're looking to achieve. What impacts that is a skill set. And as I said, I think this is the biggest change that we need to embrace, that just because you're a scaling tech firm, individuals don't need to have come from a scaling tech firm. They need to provide a solution to your issue.
Yeah, absolutely. James, it's been great to find out your thoughts on that. I hope everybody that's watched this finds it insightful, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Sounds great. Thank you, Adam. Good to catch up again.